In the roar of afterburners and the endless blue above the Nevada desert, Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the stick of her F-22 Raptor like it was the last thread holding her world together. She'd poured her soul into every barrel roll, every split S, but the whispers in the hangar cut deeper than any G-force, especially from him. Major Ryan Hale, the squadron's golden boy, who smirked like her gender was her greatest flaw. One fateful training op, when missiles locked on and the sky turned to fire, Elena's hands didn't shake. They danced, and in that split second, she became the hero he never saw coming, but would never forget. You see, Elena hadn't always been the quiet storm in the cockpit. Growing up in a dusty Texas border town, she watched her father, a Vietnam vet with ghosts in his eyes, tinker with model planes on the porch, while her mother hummed old corridos to drown out his nightmares. "The sky's no place for dreamers, mija," he'd rasp, his hands scarred from tools and time. But Elena dreamed anyway, fiercely, defiantly. She clawed her way through the academy, enduring the side eyes and the sweetheart jabs, because every time she strapped in, she felt her father's unspoken pride lift her higher. By the time she hit the 101st Fighter Wing, she was a force. Top of her class in dogfight sims, with a kill ratio that made instructors sweat. But Ryan, he was the wall she couldn't climb. Tall, cocky, with a jaw like chiseled granite and a flight record that screamed untouchable, he treated her like a glitch in his perfect formation. "Vasquez, you fly like you're auditioning for a circus," he'd quip during debriefs, his laugh echoing off the metal walls, while the other pilots shifted uncomfortably. It stung, sure, but Elena swallowed it down, channeling the burn into fuel for her next sortie. Little did she know that fire would one day save them all. The day it all ignited started ordinary enough. Blue skies stretched like an endless promise over the restricted airspace, the sun baking the salt flats below into a shimmering haze. The wing was running a full-spectrum exercise, 4-ship formation, mock intercepts against aggressors simulating enemy stealth jets. Elena was Red 4, tucked in tight on Ryan's wing as blue lead, her Raptor's sleek gray skin humming with restrained power. The radio crackled with the familiar banter, call signs bouncing like old friends, but beneath it, tension simmered. Ryan had pulled her aside that morning, his voice low and laced with that patronizing edge. "Stick close today, Vasquez. Last thing we need is you peeling off like a lost puppy." She bit back the retort, nodding with a tight smile, her heart pounding not from fear, but from the weight of proving him wrong yet again. As they climbed to Angels 30, the world below shrank to a patchwork of brown and gold, the cockpit's cool air whispering against her flight suit. But then the aggressors hit, ghostly blips on radar, closing fast with simulated AM-120s painting their tails. Alarms wailed, a symphony of urgency, and Ryan's voice sliced through. "Break left! Evasive!" The formation shattered like glass, jets twisting in a deadly ballet, contrails slashing the sky like wounds. What happened next unfolded in heartbeats that felt like hours. Ryan's bird took the brunt, a hit that in real war would have meant vapor. But here it triggered the auto-eject sequence glitch we'd all been warned about. His canopy blew, but the seat hung up. The chute tangled in the jet's shuddering frame as it spiraled toward the deck. "Eject! Eject now!" Elena screamed into the comms, her voice raw, but static answered. His radio fried in the chaos. She banked hard, the G-suit squeezing her ribs like a vice, eyes locked on that plummeting speck against the earth. The ground rushed up, merciless, a graveyard of jagged rocks and twisted metal from crashes long forgotten. Her mind flashed to her father's stories. Good men lost to the pull of gravity, their last thoughts a silent prayer to the wind. No, not Ryan. Not today. In a move that broke every rule in the book, Elena slammed the throttles to military power, her F-22 slicing downward in a power dive that pressed her into the seat like an invisible hand. The altimeter spun wildly, 20,000 feet, 15,000, the wind howling outside the canopy as if the sky itself protested. She was gambling everything, her wings, her career, maybe her life. But as the horizon tilted and her stomach lurched, she whispered to the ghost of her dad, "Watch me fly." The maneuver was poetry in peril. A high alpha scissors, threading the needle between Ryan's wild spin and the aggressors still hunting the formation. Elena's jet shuddered, wings flexing against forces that could have snapped lesser airframes. But she held it, feathers of sweat beading under her helmet. Below, Ryan's chute finally deployed in a bloom of white silk, but it snagged on a thermal updraft, dragging him toward a sheer canyon wall where boulders waited like teeth. She rolled inverted, the world flipping in a blur of blue and tan, then pulled up in a carrier brake arc that brought her perilously close, too close, to his descent. "Vasquez, what the hell?" His voice crackled back, faint and furious, but she ignored it, lining up her jet's shadow over his path. With a precision born of nights poring over flight manuals by lamplight, she deployed countermeasures, not flares, but a burst from her ECM pod, a digital scream that confused the wind shear monitors on the range. It worked. The rogue gust faltered, Ryan's canopy billowing free, carrying him clear over the rim to a soft tumble in the scrub. The wing regrouped above, breaths held in the sudden silence as Elena climbed back to formation, her hands trembling now that the adrenaline ebbed. But the real storm was just beginning, because saving him meant facing the doubt he'd sown in her soul. Debrief was a battlefield of its own. The conference room reeked of stale coffee and tension, fluorescent lights buzzing like angry hornets overhead. Ryan sat across the table, bandaged arm in a sling, his face a mask of bruised pride. The colonel replayed the telemetry. Elena's dive, the impossible angles, the split-second call that turned disaster to dust. "You broke protocol, Captain," the old man said, his voice gravelly from decades of commands. "But you saved a brother." "That's what we do," whispers rippled. Respect, finally, from the pilots who'd chuckled at Ryan's barbs. But when eyes turned to him, Ryan's gaze met Elena's, and for the first time, it wasn't laced with scorn. "I underestimated you," he muttered, the words tasting like ash, his fingers drumming the table as if fighting the urge to reach across. She nodded, the knot in her chest loosening just a fraction, but the victory felt hollow. How many times had she flown with that shadow over her? How many vets like her dad carried scars not from bullets, but from battles unseen? That night, under a star-pricked sky outside the BOQ, Ryan found her on the tarmac, the distant hum of generators their only witness. "Vasquez, Elena, I was wrong. Dead wrong. You didn't just save the wing. You saved me from being the fool who let good people fall." His voice cracked, eyes reflecting the runway lights like unshed tears. And in that raw admission, something shifted. A bridge built from arrogance's ruins. From there, the wing transformed, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet rhythms of trust. Ryan deferred to her in sims, his briefings laced with, "What do you think, Elena?" instead of commands. She mentored the rookies, sharing her dad's tales of resilience, turning the hangar into a haven where doubts dissolved like contrails in the wind. But the real heartbeat came months later, on a deployment to the Gulf, when sandstorms clawed at the base and patrols pushed the edge of endurance. Ryan took a hit. Real this time, shrapnel from Ensam grazing his canopy. And it was Elena who led the rescue cap, her F-22 a guardian angel in the dust-choked dawn. They debriefed over lukewarm MREs, shoulders brushing in the tense dim glow, and he confessed the ghosts, that mirrored her own. A brother lost in desert storm, the arrogance a shield against that ache. "You flew for both of us that day," he said, voice thick, and she squeezed his hand, the connection electric, a vow sealed in shared silence. Years on, when Elena pinned her stars and Ryan stood beside her, toasting with cheap base champagne, the squadron raised glasses not to ranks, but to the woman who'd taught them all to see beyond the wings. And as the cheers faded into the desert night, Elena looked up at the stars, her father's sky, now theirs, and felt the weight lift, not gone, but shared. In the end, it wasn't about proving the doubters wrong, it was about lifting them up, one impossible dive at a time. What if your own doubts were the real enemy, and the sky was waiting for you to claim it?